What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 19 of the Midwest Angler Podcast. I am Scott Sturman, and I'm joined by Matt Deitch. Matt, where did spring go?
I don't know.
She gone.
Yeah.
She is gone. We've got snow, we've got hail, we've got rain, we've got wind, we've
everything.
got thunder and lightning. We had it all over the last 2 days.
I thought the roof was going to shake off the house last night, to be honest with you. This morning at about 5 o'clock, it was just like boom, boom. I didn't know what was going on outside.
Right outside of my room, got a downspout, and that hail hitting that downspout, it just like, holy smokes, it was like somebody was beating drums out there.
It felt like I was in a popcorn machine.
Yeah, that was something. But
Yeah, it is crazy. This weather it's wild. We're lucky where we're at that the ground is white, but it is basically because of the hail that we've
Right.
had, kind of the hail sleet. And north of here, they've got over a foot of snow in some places and ice, down power lines, everything like that. So it's been crazy the last couple days, the weather has.
Yep. Shout out to the power linemen, shout out to the farmers, shout out to all the guys who got to still be
Yeah.
working out in this stuff. But
Yeah, getting power going. A lot of towns around the area without power, and it's good. It's nice knowing that there's people out there trying to get you back, up and going.
those poor people in Nebraska, though,
I know.
They got a flood going on, and now we're going to get,
All this stuff.
yep.
It's coming up from that way.
Yep.
What do they call this? A bomb cyclone? A boom cyclone? What do
Yeah,
they call this?
I see that on Facebook, this weird
I
term.
thought it was a new dance that all the teenagers were doing at first. Either way, I don't like it. So.
Yeah, you would have learned it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I know that because I'm just that good of a dancer.
Yeah,
But
you're still doing the Soldier Boy.
woo,
Crank that.
crank that. Come on. Yeah, maybe the Dougie every once in a while too.
Oh, yeah, the Dougie. Oh, boy. Anyways, back to fishing.
Yeah, back to fishing, which we were able to do last weekend.
We were, finally. That was a lot of
Got
fun.
to put the boat in the water.
Yep, we had plans to just go and do some shore fishing, and then all of a sudden you said, "Hey, let's take the boat." And
Let's do it.
I was like, "Oh yeah, now we're talking."
Because up until a couple days before that, people were saying that it was still holding ice. The lake was. We were over on East Okoboji, and it was just like, no, we're doing this because we had a south wind that day, and I knew if there was any ice that it was going to be blown to the north shore, which it was, and where we wanted to fish was going to be open for us. And we kind of went to the spot where we had some success late ice. We're hoping that the crappies were going to be up in there, but unfortunately we couldn't find the crappies, but we did find some yellow bass and perch.
Yep. You ran a minnow under a slip bobber for a while. You threw a couple jigs, and you got some largemouth. A nice big drum that put up a heck of a fight. We caught some perch. We caught, what else did we catch? Oh, yellow bass.
Yellow bass, yeah.
Perch.
4 different species. So
Yep,
we got that off of our list that we were trying to get going for this season.
Yeah. That's going to be fun. I don't know. I think it'll be kind of cool, especially nearing the end, of the season when we're like, hey, we can knock this one off.
Yeah, we haven't caught this, and it forces you to become a better all-around fisherman because you're going to go target different species than what you normally would instead of just accidentally catching something.
Right, and we've said this from the beginning. We like fishing, period.
Yeah.
We don't care if we're catching carp, if we're catching bluegills, if we're catching bass, walleye. We're just in it,
That's
to
right.
fish. So
I mean, but if we are walleye fishing, we obviously want to catch walleyes. But,
definitely.
But it's always fun to catch that bonus fish. That a couple years ago when we were over on Silver Lake, every once in a while you'd hook into a nice perch, and it's like I'm not gonna argue about that.
But we've had panfish trips that have turned into walleye trips, and we've had bass
Vice versa.
trips. Whatever's biting, and I think that's actually one of the keys to having a little bit more success. Maybe not being an overall better angler, but having more successful days is, if you get out there and you're going after panfish, but golly, we can't, we're catching a couple walleye on panfish gear, and then all of a sudden you switch over to walleye gear, and then you really,
Really start getting after them.
Yeah, that's just all part of it.
Kind of do what the fish tell you some days. Sometimes you don't go over there with much of a plan. You're just going to go fishing. And like you said, we've had those days where we went over there and we've went to target panfish, and that's actually kind of the fun thing about panfish is that when you go to target them, you could catch just about anything.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, northerns.
You never know what's going to happen. Heck, that one day when we were over there catching all those yellow bass, we had that northern or a muskie. We really didn't know what it was because it happened so fast. That came up. Was it you that had the yellow bass on? And that thing came shooting up from under the boat. And
yeah, I actually drew blood on the yellow bass, and then Ramrod had that big walleye
yeah, that thing
him
had
up.
to be about 27, 28 inches at least. I mean, that was
Go
a big
figure,
one.
frickin' Ramrod.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about that was that just kind of laid there and.
Yeah,
because I was like, keep it in the water, keep it in the water, keep that yellow bass in the water and see if it'll hit it. But yeah, it would have been fun. You see those stories all the time on Facebook or those videos of somebody reeling something in, and a muskie will come up and grab onto it, and
they get them.
Yeah, they just hold on to it. Some of the guides over there at Okoboji have had that happen before, where they've been reeling in a bluegill and boom, they catch a 40+ inch muskie because it's not because they had it hooked. It's just that it clamped down on that bluegill and wouldn't let it go.
Yep.
Or even a smallmouth bass. You'd be surprised what they'll come up and
I'm sure
try to hit.
But yeah, I was able to get a master angler for my first first open water fish. Yep, master angler is a 10-inch yellow bass, and this one was 11.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that they do come bigger over there. I haven't submitted it yet, and I realize that it's maybe a program that's maybe a touch more for the kid or the beginning angler.
It's not for the kid.
You don't think so?
It's for they have that set there for a reason. If it was just for kids or it was a kids thing, that's what they would say. This is a kid's master angler. Is it fun for them? But it's fun for all ages.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I would just like to see, 20 years from now, how many master anglers I can chalk off my list. And
well, to see if you can catch a master angler on every one that they have there. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about it.
Yep. And I know that I've caught bigger than 10-inch yellow bass before, but either I didn't take my picture with them or, yeah, I measured it and kind of forgot about it, whatever. But yeah, I do need to submit this because especially with the way Clear Lake and Okoboji are kicking out yellow bass, you always wonder if, a year or two from now, if they'll
Bump it up.
Got to get it while I can.
Well, and that's kind of the neat thing about the Master Angler program or the Proud Angler program. They call it different things in different states. The different guidelines in different states.
Yep.
South Dakota has different guidelines than what Iowa does. Minnesota has different ones than, just that's kind of the neat thing about it.
Yep.
What's a master angler in one state isn't a master angler in another state.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, when you get up there to South Dakota and North Dakota, big yellow perch, get big up there. And, down here, of course, yeah, we did just have a new state record, but we don't get the quality that consistently that they do up there.
Yeah.
But
it was definitely a fun trip getting out there, kind of getting all the bugs worked out in yourself. You get back into the casting thing. It felt good to whiz a jig a long ways.
Yep.
So.
And then we turned around and did some bass fishing.
Yep. Well, the next day you went to a pond and caught some really nice largemouth.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt good. And looking back, I'm like, golly, were they as big? Because, I mean, my heart was really going when I was catching them, and the water was perfect. I could sit there with my polarized sunglasses and watch them come out of the cattails and smack my jig. And, I think I caught a couple that might have been up, 19, maybe pushing 20. I'm not saying that they were over it. But, a 4-pound, 5-pound, fish maybe.
And nice largemouth.
Yeah, and then, so I tell Matt, yeah, let's go back over here. And I even told my brother, like, I don't know if things go right tonight. I think me and Matt might both be able to chalk a master angler largemouth off.
We had a good feeling going into it.
And I mean, we caught fish, but I hate to say how let down I really was.
Conditions were a little bit different. It was pretty windy that day.
It was, yep.
But it was kind of your classic early spring patterns that we were catching them on. You were catching them on a swim bait. I caught them on a chatterbait and a jig.
Yep. Yeah, just sitting on shore and casting it basically as close to the shore, as you could, up next to the cattails, and they'd come darting out of there. Yeah, you caught a couple, over 18. and
And
or right at 18.
Right at 18. You caught, what was it, three in a row?
Three in a
casts in a
row.
row, and then on the fourth cast, you had a hit, but it got off.
Yep, broke off. My hook, kind of a crappy jig head, and starting to straighten out my hook. And I had caught it on a couple cattails prior, and the old just frickin' jerking that rod
Sometimes
back
you
and
just
forth.
got to pull it out of there.
Yeah, well, if I would have had my Crocs on, I could have gotten in the water and
And then you
done
would
it.
whine about cold feet.
No, not in Crocs.
Cold feet and ugly feet. Ugly shoes, and
They're camouflage.
You may have been comfortable, but
Yeah.
yeah, you guys and your Croc Nation and all that stuff. They're for some people. They're not. Like I've told you before, the big reason I'm against them is being a PE teacher. Kids wear them to class, and they never put them in four-wheel drive, so they're always slipping off their feet and falling down. And they don't strap up.
The big reason you're against them is because you're too proud, and you've talked crap about me for
That's
for
a huge
so
part of
long
it.
that now you're even like, golly, you know what? I think Scott's onto something. But I'm too proud, and I'm not going to do it.
It is what it is. I've looked up alternatives to Crocs.
Well,
Croc alternatives.
now that you're finally admitting it, that's the first step in finally getting you in a pair of nice quality footwear. The price is right. They're good looking. Well, I mean, yeah. All right. Well, anyways,
Speaking of equipment,
Sorry, Emily.
and food and foot, and all that, yeah. But yeah, it was just nice being out there in the boat this weekend. Hopefully next week it starts getting a little bit nicer out. I think the extended forecast looks like it's supposed to start getting nicer, and since we didn't get all that snow here, hopefully next week, some evening, if not next weekend, get out and do some fishing.
finally.
Yeah, more of it, and really
Yeah.
get after it now that the lakes are all completely open. And
Right.
hopefully they start getting the docks in
Yep.
at a lot of them, at a lot of the landings.
I would like to think that this is our last wintry weather of the year.
Yeah. We're still going to get I
I
we're
mean,
still going to get some cold fronts that blow in and
right,
stuff like
but
that. But
I'm
yeah,
just hoping that this is the end of the snow and that type of stuff.
yeah, for sure.
But no,
Yeah, one nice thing the other day, then we were out there fishing. It was just nice to make sure all the rods and reels were good to go for the season, how they looked. The last couple days or today with this the weather the way it has been, is a good day just to stay inside, maybe spool up some reels, put some new line on those reels.
yep. Are you a every year spooler? How often do you spool your reels?
I try to do it every year, but it depends how much I use the stuff. It might go every other year.
Yep. I'm not that even. As wrong as it is, I spool them up and I run them until she's getting low, and then I'll pull the rest off and go and spool it up again. But I know, like we've talked, there's professional fishermen that spool, every day,
Yep.
in between each tournament. I know that there's a lot of guys that'll spool at the beginning of spring, halfway through summer, will re-spool.
Well, the nice thing for a lot of those pros, that are sponsored by some of the bigger line companies, get it for free.
Yep.
That's one of the big things is I like to use fluorocarbon line and some braid, especially on my bass stuff. That stuff is expensive. When you're talking $20 a spool, some of it, anywhere from $10 to $20 a spool, it can get to be expensive a purchase all the time if you're always buying line. And now if I was doing more tournament fishing, then it is worth it to change it to make sure it's still good.
Definitely, especially guys that are fishing at a high level for big money, even if they're not sponsored, the small investment that it is to make thousands, hundreds of thousands for some
Yeah.
of these guys,
And one of the big reasons why you want to re-spool it is not necessarily because it might weaken up, but a lot of it, your monofilament and your fluorocarbon line gets memory in it. And what that is when you cast your line out, you want it to be nice and smooth line, you don't want a bunch of twists in it. If you throw it out there and your line has a bunch of twists in it, that's memory is what it's referred to as. And that's why you want to kind of change it out so you don't get that memory into your line.
Yep. I'm really more of a spinning reel guy. I'm going to be, in the next week or two, going to be buying a low profile bait caster for, flipping and pitching, for bass and whatnot. But I've always, especially down here, the majority of my fishing and yours is down here at the river, casting for smallmouths and whatnot. And this one here is off of my main river rod. It's an Abu Garcia, and this is the SX20. The different numbers on the reels, all the way down to small ice fishing reels or small pan fishing reels that are meant to go on ultralight pools, sometimes are labeled as a 5 or a 50, and then you can go up to 10s, 20s, 30s, bigger yet, could be 100, 200, 300, 400, different brands, different numbers, but it's all kind of the same. Right on the reel, it'll tell you what size line they recommend for it, and I think that that's normally monofilament, correct?
Yep, that's usually monofilament.
Yeah, monofilament line. And it'll tell you how many yards you're going to be able to get on it. I always, at Shields or the Berkeley Outlet in Okoboji, or those are the two that I always do, I have them spool their bulk line on it for me. Some people prefer to bring it home and put their own line on, but if that's what you decide to do, that's how you tell how much you're going to need.
And the nice thing about that, when you do go to those places, they'll put free monofilament line on there when you purchase it from them, their bulk line.
Yep.
I know Shields does that. It's nice because it's not like they're just putting a low quality line on there. Usually it's like Berkeley XT or XL, good quality stuff.
Right. Yep. And that's going to save you $7-8 or whatever,
to buy a spool of it. And then it's nice that they can just quick put it on instead of you having to do it at home by yourself, which can be a task at times.
Yeah. Well, and I know if you the spool that you buy it on, if you have it upside down, I don't know which way it is, you can put that line on your reel backwards, and then you open up your bail and it all just goes slinky out. And I've done that a few times before I really knew what I was doing, and golly, then you got a mess and you're looking like an idiot. And sorry if you've had that happen. I'm not saying you look like an idiot.
I think it's going to happen to all of us before.
I've had it, and I felt like an idiot. Let's put it that way.
It's the only way to learn, though.
Yep. But, no, yeah, that's your spinning reels. A lot of walleye guys, a lot of, guys who aren't planning on casting a long way, lighter jigs. If you're going to be fishing in the wind, it's not a big problem.
Easier to cast.
Yep. Yeah, easier because obviously on the low profile or either bait caster, you got to kind of use your thumb as a brake. Matt will probably dip into that here in a second, but yeah, and especially for those of you that are just listening to the audio version, we do have a couple reels here that we're kind of showing the camera a little bit, but yeah, no, that's your spinning reel. Pairs up with a spinning rod. Obviously it goes on the bottom of the rod.
Yeah, don't be one of those people that hold it upside down and
that you're gonna end up on a meme or a GIF or a YouTube video or something. It goes on the bottom. If you're looking for a quick, easy way to figure out what rod that pairs up with, it'll have the bigger eyelets on the bottom of the rod.
If it has a trigger on it, don't put this rod on it.
Nope.
Or this reel on that rod.
Yep. So, but yeah, no, Matt will talk more about the bait casters. He's a past in a lot of bass fishing. You've swung a couple of them.
Yep. And just to add on to the spinning reels, different ones have like different drags on them. Some have the front drags, most of them do. Some of them have it on the back side of it. What the drag is you always want that set when you're fighting a fish. If they do take off, they can take a little bit of drag so it's not tightened down all the way and there's no shock absorber in there for that line. That line, a lot of times that's why you break your line, is because you don't have the drag set right. Or your back reel, you can go backwards and everything. So Yeah, it's a good overview on the spinning rods, spinning reels.
Don't be
It's,
afraid to put your drag really light.
yeah.
I'm a light.
The only thing about that is my drag is light sometimes too, but you got to be careful of if it's too light when you go to set the hook, you're not going to get the hook into the fish very well, and
Yep.
you can lose a lot of fish that way.
I know, especially when new people are ever ice fishing with me, and I set my hook and the drag goes a little bit, and they're like, "Ooh, you got a big one?" Nah, it's probably just a small bluegill that I've got. I always have my drag set really light. That's just something.
And you're gonna inevitably you're gonna adjust it while you're fighting the fish too.
Yep. You can do that.
And well, as far as the bait casters go, there's kind of two major types of bait casters. You have your kind of your original round bait casters, and then you have your low profile bait casters. The nice thing about these low profile bait casters is they fit right into your hand real nice for a long day of fishing. Having it, that lightness of them, that easy grip on them, it makes a huge difference as far as fatigue goes in your arms and in your hands. Because after a long day of fishing, you can definitely tell. The round ones kind of are the old classic ones that have evolved from this. The Abu Garcia Ambassadors are great round reels that have been around for a long time, kind of the original ones. The nice thing about these, a lot of musky fishermen use them, catfish fishermen use them because you can get heavier line on them and more of it. They hold a bigger capacity. Just like Scott said with the spinning reels, they come in different sizes. You can get small round ones, you can get the bigger ones. This is a bigger 6600 Ambassador Abu Garcia. I use it on my musky rod, one of my musky rods. Yeah, it's nice for that line capacity.
One of the things I
Aspect
like
of it.
about that Ambassador, I've got two of those Ambassadors also on my catfishing rods, and I love, when you're shore fishing, be able to cast it out, leave that, I don't know.
Bait clicker.
Yep. Put that bait clicker on, and when those catfish go on a run, you can be sitting in your lawn chair looking at
Right.
birds or whatever, and all of a sudden, you
Yep.
start hearing that click, and God, that's a fun time right there.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice feature on it. And then, your low profile bait casters, you can't get as much, the line capacity on here is not as much because it's a smaller spool, but it's really nice. These are really nice, like Scott said, when you're pitching and flipping, you're throwing a lot of like heavier jigs or heavier creature bait type things. It's nice to have this bait caster. Now, with all the reels, one thing that, they're not all made the same as far as the reels. They might look the same, but they're not. A lot of times it's different gear ratios. And people always are like, well, what is the gear ratio? Because you can go up there, this one is a 7-to-1 gear ratio, and this one is a 6-to-4 gear ratio. The higher the gear ratio, the faster the reel is. So, like, certain applications you want different, speed reels. This one, it's nice for pitching and flipping. Some of them now they're making, I think, like Abu Garcia has the rocket that's like 9-to-1. There's a one that's like 8-to-4 or something like that. It's nice, like when you're flipping something, you flip it into the reeds, and if that fish comes up there right away and grabs it, you can, instead of having to really, really reel to catch up to it and get that slack out of your line and set the hook. This one is just like boom. You can take one turn of the crank, and it picks up, say 30 inches of line. Boom, you can set that hook a lot faster.
And sometimes if you're flipping and pitching up next to some cattails or whatever, that fish might grab that bait and head right for your boat.
Yeah, or
And
vice versa into heavier cover. So that's why you want to,
yep, you want to be able to get caught up with that fish ASAP.
before it spits it out.
Yep,
Or
exactly.
gets you hung up on stuff, around docks. That way you can
Trolling motor.
As soon as you set that hook, you can get them out of there so that they can't get you wrapped up. 6-4-1 is probably the more popular one because you can use it all around. If you need to speed up a little bit, you can reel it just a little bit faster. If you want to slow it down, now you can get them down to like 5-to-1. That's good for like crankbaits, things like your slower presentations that are in the strike zone longer, so you can kind of slow it down. That's something I got to tell myself sometimes, especially this time of year, is you got to slow yourself down, slow it down while you're reeling. Well, if you have a high-speed reel, it feels like you're just reeling real painfully slow. Whereas if you switch to a lower gear ratio reel, you can reel like your normal speed, but you're not reeling it in as fast.
I notice that a lot of times at the river, and like you said, early in the year when the water's still cold, those fish aren't going to be quite as fast
Right.
sometimes. But I notice that in the river a lot of times. You just kind of get in a zone and you get reeling, and pretty soon you look at your bait as it's coming in, and it's like that thing is flying. I mean,
Well, you get so excited.
right,
Yeah.
and but those fish have to battle when you're down at the river. They're already battling the current,
Yeah.
and then they got to still catch up with your bait, and that's it. Don't be afraid. A little bit slower presentation. That's one of the things I noticed with you the other day when we were bass fishing, is you were really rocking a real slow presentation. Cast out and just slowly lift and slowly skipping that thing back to you. I don't know if skipping is the right word. You were down on the ground, but it was just taking slow hops back.
hopping
You were
it back,
you were
yeah.
taking your time and
Especially with a jig like that and this time of year, you just kind of sometimes you might want to give it a good pop just to try to get that reaction bite. They see it and they think it's a crawfish or a bluegill or something like that, and it's like boom, they go after it. But other times they might come up there and you just kind of want to shake it along as you go, and they'll pick it up off the bottom.
Yep.
So, and the other thing about these two is the nice thing about the spinning reel is versatile. The handle on it can be switched to either side on most of them, whereas a bait caster, they're usually not like that. This one's on the right hand, this one's on the left hand as far as that goes, and it's kind of personal preference. I like a right-handed one most of the time, but the last few years I've kind of going to a left-handed one for like my pitching and my flipping stuff. So, because I usually hold, if I'm throwing a bait caster, I usually hold the rod in my left hand when I'm reeling, but when I cast, it's in my right hand when I cast. So then I have to switch it over. Whereas like I said, when you're pitching and flipping and things like those applications, when you flip in there, so I'm flipping with my right hand, the rod in my right hand, I flip the bait in there, and now I'm switching over to my left hand to put the rod in there to start reeling. A lot of times, as soon as that bait, when it's that initial fall, is when the fish comes up and hits it. Well, it can happen in the middle of there, and sometimes I miss the bites. I don't even feel it, realize that a fish came up there and grabbed it and spit it out. And other times, then it's like, oh, they're starting to swim away, and I'm a second behind them. Whereas with that left-handed reel now, I pitch it holding the rod in my right hand. It hits the water, and the rod's in my right hand. So if it does hit right away, boom, I can set that hook and start fighting the fish. It takes a little bit to get used to. It's just like writing with your left hand or shooting a basket with your opposite hand. But after a while, you get trained to it, and it makes it a lot easier and more efficient as far as the day goes. You can get more casts in.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of our overview of the different, kind of some major types, different reels. Going in there, it can be intimidating going to those tackle stores because they got that whole lineup of them, that big brass rail of umpteen different reels that you can go buy. Talk to the guys there. Price points are always different too. You can buy them from $20 all the way up to $500-$600, if not even more than that.
Yep.
And as far as that goes, when it goes to tackle, spending all that money on it, you pay for what you get for, just like anything. They're not the same. I mean, the components in them in a $50 reel are totally different than they are in a $500 reel. But they're just as good.
Yeah. I mean,
They get the job done.
yep.
They get the job done.
I throw a lot of combos that are $75 combos, and
You fish with what you can afford. You don't want to.
Definitely.
You don't want to go out there and spend all this money on your equipment, and then you can't pay for gas to get to the lake.
Right.
Or I got a $500 combo, but I can only buy $4 worth of lures. Well, I go out there the first time. It's hard to buy a lure, a crankbait or anything like that these days for less than $4. So you got to have money for all of your equipment. And I'm telling you, that price range that a lot of these companies are starting to finally figure out is that $50 to $125 price range, $130 price range, they're starting to realize that we can build a really, really quality product in that price point, and people are going to buy that stuff because that's what most people can afford.
Yep. When, yeah, not only is it what most people can afford, but like you said, yeah, you can buy bait casting reels for $600, but, and I won't say the $20 ones are good, but if you spend $60 on a bait casting reel, for 95% of people that are fishing, that's going to be more than suffice.
Right.
And
I mean, the nice thing about sometimes the equipment is if you don't spend a lot on it, you're not going to sit there and worry and baby it. So you're just kind of, I mean,
throw it in the back of the truck and
yeah,
get going.
you can go. If you're down at the river, if you drop it on the bank into the sand or something like that, you can clean it up and you're good to go. You're not out there like, oh my God, did I just break like a $300 rod on a carp? So,
and the fish don't care.
and then that's the thing.
The
And
fish
then
do not know.
that's one of the biggest things I've kind of always struggled with over the years, that I've had to tell myself, you go out there and you're fishing. If you're fishing in a tournament, some of these guys pull up and they have $50,000 to $60,000 boats, and you pull up with your little 16-foot boat and all that stuff, and you start thinking, it gets into your head a little bit, and you start thinking, the fish don't care. Can they get to places faster than you? Yeah. Might those boats handle better in rougher, bigger water? Of course, but when it comes down to it, it's still how well and good of a fisherman you are when you do that.
A lot of guys in old boats have won some
Yeah.
tournaments.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. 2 years ago, I think me and you were fishing maybe the King Turkey Day tournament, Southwest Minnesota Fishing Club
Yeah.
over by Worthington, Minnesota, and there was a boat and pickup that showed up, and the boat and the pickup kind of had matching graphics and everything, and it was just like, hoofda, that guy's gonna win. And I don't remember, but I'm sure he didn't. And he might have got second, he might have got third, but
And nothing against all those
No,
guys.
heck
If you
no,
can afford it, do it.
Yeah,
I mean, if I could afford all that stuff,
you better believe it.
I would probably have it.
Yep.
But,
No, yeah, that definitely, we're not talking down on the people that do have that, because I think that's every fisherman's dream is to
It
have a
is.
rig like that. But yeah, you go with what you can afford, because you're still going to catch fish. It's all about how good of an angler you are. How you
And
adapt to
figuring 'em out
situations,
and
looking at a lake and figuring out.
conditions, lake maps, all that stuff.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah. Otherwise, Bassmaster in Winyah Bay.
Winyah Bay.
Winyah Bay
Is
started
that
today.
South Carolina? Right?
Yeah, it's
South
South
Carolina. I think they're
Carolina.
kind of in the South Carolina. They were.
River that leads to an ocean there.
It's a
they're
tidal water.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're not.
So
not
those
far off
tidal
the-
water tournaments are always crazy. It's always interesting for those things, especially over there on the East Coast. Weights are never high. I don't know why I thought it was going to take as much as it's going to take per day to win. My prediction will be close, but I guess the leader today had like 16 pounds, and I think I went with like a 16-pound per day average.
Did you?
And you're going to see a lot. The one nice thing about him is the big bite is huge. If
Yeah,
you, I mean,
if you can get
Jason,
one
yeah,
big
Jason
kicker
Williamson
fish,
is Jason Williamson is leading it, and he has like 1610 for total weight on day one, and he caught like a 6-pound, like 5-ounce bass.
Yep.
So if he, catches a 3-pound bass instead of a 6-pound bass, he's sitting at 13 pounds and kind of right there on the edge of the top 10. So you want to catch that big bass, which is kind of fun. It makes it, it's neat to see a 13 or a 14-inch bass make a huge difference, or all of a sudden if you can hook into a 17, 18-incher, that's a big bass, and it can really move you up the standings
There was
in a quick hurry.
There was a lot of guys 2 hours out from weigh-ins that didn't have any fish.
Oh yeah, well, and a lot of that is because those guys on a tournament like this, I think I saw one guy drove 260 miles today in his boat
I was going
to
to say,
fish.
I think
A lot of them will run down to like certain spots, and it'll only leave them with like an hour of fishing.
Really?
In that whole day of tournament, like a 7-hour tournament day, they only get to fish 1 hour because they are driving to a spot where they know they can catch those fish that are holding quality fish in that 1 hour. And the interesting thing too about a tidal water tournament is you got to watch the tide.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you
that
can get
saltwater.
stuck.
Well, yeah, that
You
too.
can get
Yep,
stuck up,
yep.
and if you're up somewhere and high tide, you can get into this spot, and you start fishing, and you're not paying attention to that tide. You go to leave,
Yep.
it's the water's gone down, and you can't get out of where you were at. That happens a lot up in those tournaments.
We've actually experienced that. We did not get stuck, but when we're fishing inshore down in Southwest Florida, going through the mangroves and whatnot, through these little channels and whatnot. And yeah, our guide has said before, time to get going because she's going down and we're going to be camped out here. So yeah, no, and I know that that can really, depending on the way the tides are every day, because it's not like the tide is every day high tide at 6 a.m. and low tide at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it changes daily, and some tides are higher than the previous day, and yeah, that would really be something.
It's an interesting. Those are always interesting tournaments. I can't remember which classic was held on one out there on the East Coast, and I think Kevin Van Dam ended up winning it.
Go figure.
But it took like 12 pounds a day
Really?
to win it. So
Yeah. Well, in our personal pool,
yeah, on the Midwest Angler Podcast fantasy fishing.
after day one, Jeremy K, Dirty Dog, he's up there at the top. Another guy who I know, Matt Deitch, he's in second.
I'm just kind of consistently staying right in that spot. It's just like, I don't know. I think
Did you see Colby Van Beek got 11?
he had the winner. He had like this. He had a bunch of. I think all of his guys maybe in the top 10 or close to it.
Yep. Yeah, that was really impressive. Good job, Colby. But yeah, slab game, Rick, Dan T. I had the worst day out of everyone.
No, you didn't. Ramsey did because he forgot to put a team on there.
Ah, moron. No, we'll give him a little bit of credit. He's down in the Army. He's down in sergeant school. He's done with sergeant school tomorrow, and then I think he's got drill this weekend. So we've got like 3 more days of freedom, and then that
peace and quiet.
Yeah, then that drips back. Oh, we're just kidding. We actually do like him some days.
Talking about with the Elite Series going on right now, it was a kind of a nice day to have a snow day because not only was the Elite Series having their live coverage all day long, but the FLW Tour is down at Lake Cherokee in Oklahoma right now. So they had their live stuff on today. And then Major League Fishing, I don't know, yesterday I think they're still, I don't know if they're still at Lake Chickamauga in Tennessee. And they have live coverage too. So,
FLW is Kentucky Lake.
No, that's the Bass Federation.
Oh, the Bass Federation.
That's the Bass Federation.
Yep,
they
my
have
bad.
their national semifinals going on right now where Troy Dede is fishing at.
I think it's the national championships, isn't it?
Is it the championships or the semifinals? I guess we'll have to look.
I'm pretty sure it's the championship, but I could be wrong. But,
So
yeah, either way,
all that's going on right now.
Troy Dede, episode 15 guest down there. He weighed 2 fish today. Him and his co-angler Mason Big Crow out of Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So yeah,
But they didn't fish together. They don't fish together on this.
oh, they don't.
No, when you get down there,
They separate.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a non-boater division and a boater division.
Okay.
And usually they kind of separate those guys out,
Okay.
everything like that. And the cool thing about that one is, in the Bass Federation, is you don't have to bring your boat. You fish out of a boat that
I noticed that
Yep.
Troy was in a.
it's a Ranger. They're associated with FLW, and Ranger Boats is one of their big sponsors. So
I saw that they uploaded some pictures today, and I was kind of scrolling through, and then I saw that you liked one of the pictures, and I zoomed in, and yeah, sure enough, that was Troy, and I was like, well, I don't think that that's his normal boat, but yeah, so learn something new every day.
So you had all the 3 major ones having their. So I watch fishing all day long, when I was at the weight room, I had it by myself, so I put it up there on the TV screen and had the split screen going, and I was watching it all.
I'm going to talk to my boss about a snow day tomorrow. Maybe
Yeah, it would still be going tomorrow. You should.
Yeah. But
I heard it. Your boss is a nice guy.
I don't know. He is a nice guy. I think he just started listening to the podcast.
You're right. It is the national championship.
Yeah.
Down in Kentucky Lake. We'll see which place Troy is sitting in right now. See if he's up there.
Northern Division. I don't know if that makes any
Well, that's
difference.
just where he fishes out of. There's all different divisions.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Do 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 do
We can keep talking about something else.
do 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 do. You want me to sing for him?
No. We'd
Okay.
lose a bunch of listeners then if you did that.
What you gonna do with all that?
Oh, inside you. I don't know that one. I don't see. What is this one here? It's not showing up. Oh,
Well.
there it is. Mason Big Crow is in 12th
12th?
with 5 pounds 7 ounces. Yeah, I'm not seeing. You said Troy had 2.
Yeah, I believe he had 2 fish. Well, I was watching the live weigh-ins, and it was a deal where, they had an announcer. It was on a Facebook Live. Troy came walking up, and I know he had a bag because he was standing by the tank.
Well, they had showed a picture. I saw a picture of him online with a big one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
I know he was standing by the tank. I know he walked up, and he had fish to weigh, but I do not know. They never specifically said how many or what he had, and I guess I thought maybe I heard 2, but I could be wrong on that too. I guess either way, that's
they only have like 27 anglers on here right now too. So I don't know if they're not.
Maybe it's not fully updated, or
Here we go. I found it.
all right.
Let's see, where is he at?
We need a guy on the podcast that can be like off to the side looking stuff up for us, like Joe Rogan has.
Yeah, there he is. 27th.
27th.
2 fish for 7.2. So
Hey.
that one was a big one.
Yeah, a dinger.
So yeah, hopefully he can have a good day tomorrow and move up the standings quite a ways. I don't think he's in.
Hopefully
first.
Chris Zaldane and
Right,
Bassmaster can move up the standings.
No, that's all right. He can stay right where he's at.
All right. You know what I think we need to do more on this podcast, Matt, is we need to argue.
Argue a lot.
Yeah. I feel
We
like
did argue about the croc thing. You think they're cool, and I don't think they're cool.
You know what we're going to do? One of these next episodes, I'm not saying it's going to be the next episode, but we're going to come up with like 4 topics that we really disagree on. And we're just going to get on here and duke it out, like maybe
UFC
get close
style,
to...
without the physical contact.
I feel like a lot of times, I'm kind of saying something or you're kind of saying something, and we agree on so much, so it's just like, yeah, right you are, Matt. And that's what it is. But
yeah, but in my mind, I'm thinking, God, he sounds so stupid right now.
yeah, that's
I
kind of
just
what I'm
don't
thinking.
say it.
That's what I'm thinking too. But I'm worried about hurting your feelings and just ruining this podcast. So I just go along with it. Go along to get along, as Kendall DeGroat says. So, all righty.
No, we'll think of something.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in to episode 19. We'll see you at episode 20, hopefully with nicer weather.
Yeah, hopefully everybody gets their power back and